Namaskar and welcome to Insight. I am Charu Karthike. In this edition of Insight, we'll be trying to take a look at the role of Election Commission in the elections to the 15th Lok Sabha held so far. We'll also be taking a look at this period ever since the Election Commission announced the schedule for the elections, that is, ever since the Model Code of Conduct was set in motion till this point of time. In this period, we have seen the Election Commission receiving several complaints from various parties, from various candidates, and for various sort of electoral malpractices or alleged electoral malpractices under the sun, all sorts of malpractices. These include from false affidavits to dummy candidates, and even at a few places where polling has already been held, to complaints of booth capturing. We'll be trying to understand how do we look at the way the Election Commission has responded to all these allegations, also trying to understand whether the expectations from the Election Commission are too much, or is Election Commission doing its role up to the mark as far as conducting free and fair elections in such a large democracy of ours is concerned. We're trying to take a look at the entire role that has been played by Election Commission in conducting the elections so far. So all of that and much more in this edition of Insight. And joining us in the studio is a distinguished panel of experts today. With us in the studio is Mr. Anil Verma, Head of Association for Democratic Reforms. Mr. Verma, welcome to Insight. Sanjay Kapoor, Senior Journalist, Editor, Hard News. Sanjay, thank you so much for coming here. And Professor Subrata Mukherjee, well-known political analyst. Professor Mukherjee, welcome to Insight.
Thank you.
Anilji, I would like to begin with you. Let us begin with some of the earliest complaints or other expectations from the Election Commission that we read about. And that was when the Model Code of Conduct had just set in motion. And that was initially at the nomination stage. We saw a lot of reports about several candidates having filed the same value of their property or of their assets that they had filed last times around. This led to a lot of analysis or demands or expectations from the Election Commission that why can't Election Commission take a proactive approach as far as affidavits are concerned and try to verify on its own whether a candidate is filing the actual value of the property or not, or at least this kind of discrepancy is not seen, that from 2009 to 2004 a particular candidate is declaring the same value of his property or asset. In this case, do you feel the Election Commission was found a little wanting, or there's very little power that Election Commission has to do something about it? What do you feel?
Sir, see, this is a genuine problem. When the nomination papers are filed, there is very little time for the Election Commission to process them, because we do this thing the moment the nomination papers are filed and they are uploaded on the website of the Election Commission, we start downloading them and then we do the analysis. We have a tool in our software wherein we get all the details of the assets and criminal cases against the candidate and things like that. So this we have also pointed out to the Election Commission at times, that we need to have a system wherein the date of purchase of the assets, if let's say if it is a movable property, it should be given. But the candidates by and large do not give it. They just say this much assets, total cost so much. So unless you know exactly, otherwise as per the inflation only, the property which was say 1 lakh in 5 years back would now be double or maybe triple that thing. So there is a need to lay down certain more strict regulations, but the problem is that they do not have enough time to verify these.
Okay.
And more so when large number of nomination papers are filed on the very last day. So there is very little time left actually between the filing of the nomination and the
Okay. Sanjay, what do you feel about this particular problem, false affidavits? Do you think the Election Commission can do much more in this area?
I mean, Mr. Verma has already said what are the problems that are there. But if you look at it, what has really happened in the last many years? People file false affidavit. What is the outcome? How do people get penalized? There is no clarity on that. It's more to do with pressure groups like ADR and others to actually compare and bring to the notice of the Election Commission that this is what is going wrong. And there is a bit of a name and shame them which is built into this entire exercise. But people tend to get away. I mean, you look at a gentleman who's a very serious candidate for the prime ministerial job, and he has filed an affidavit, the one for Vadodara and one for Varanasi, and there is a discrepancy in that also. So
income has gone up by about 15 lakh in 15 days.
So that kind of stuff, and I don't know what Election Commission can do about it. So there is I mean, these are certain things which are not categorical imperatives but more moral imperative, in which that people have to you know, take a position and state whatever assets that they have. And the tendency everywhere is to hammer it down and show that it's more acceptable, and you don't try to show wealth which will try to put people off and give an impression that is all ill-gotten. But most of the people who are there in politics, save for a few people who are in business, have their assets which keep on creeping up for some reason or the other, and you know how it happens. So the tendency is to hammer it down, and I don't think Election Commission can do very much rather than, and subsequently probably offer it to the Income Tax Department to verify. Or but I haven't seen grief visiting these people.
Okay.
So
yeah, Professor Mukherjee, do you agree that this makes? Do you also feel that this makes a big impact to the image of the conduct of a free and fair elections, and that the Election Commission probably can do much more, or a little
well,
more?
Charu, the first important point to realize that India is not a very law-abiding nation, and politics normally is a reflection of what happens in society. So if the societal norms are violated all the time, for instance, giving a false rent receipt is quite an accepted part of our culture. Even a husband gives to the wife and vice versa. So in that kind of a situation, we should all the time think of a minimum that a organization can do. You know, there is a minimalist approach to things, and I think that's what the Election Commission does. Look to the stupendous task it performs. You know, conducting an election throughout the nation is quite an event. Even the Westerners look to us with quite a bit of awe and reverence. That a minimalist attitude leads to overlooking of many of the things. You know, for instance, the expenses of individual candidates. And there is also another, you see, funny thing in our political culture, that it's 70 lakh. Every candidate, every political party wants enhancement. But when you look to the return, none of them have spent even half of the money. But still they want enhancement. So the entire thing is quite flawed, as our entire criminal justice system has collapsed. And mind you that the writ of the Election Commission is for a very limited period of time. You know, and the society goes back to the original form with the legalities and norms the moment the election is completed. So in that kind of a situation, I think what the Election Commission tries to do, as we all do in our life in a way, that let's do the minimum possible and rest to leave to posterity and legislative acumen and also the Supreme Court intervention.
Okay. Mr. Verma, another issue is that of electoral rolls. We understand that the Election Commission is continuously engaged in the exercise of cleaning electoral rolls of ghost voters as they used to exist. Once upon a time, they used to exist in large numbers in our electoral rolls because of a lot of electoral malpractices, and because of which rigging also used to take place. That was when the time ballot papers used to be in use. But at this point of time, over the last, at least since late 1990s, the Election Commission has continuously been engaged in this task of cleaning the electoral rolls of ghost voters. But what it has, the flip side of it has been that several genuine voters names also get deleted from the voters list. We saw this complaint coming out in large numbers in Mumbai recently. Even in Delhi in the assembly elections, not in the Lok Sabha elections this time, but in the assembly elections held in December, there were widespread complaints that genuine voters who had voted last time around, their names had been deleted from the voters list. Do you think this is also an area where the Election Commission needs to pull up its socks?
No, I don't think so. I think Election Commission is doing a fantastic job as far as the enhancement of the number of people. You see there's I think 9 to 10% increase in the number of people who have come out to vote now, and the proactive measures which the Election Commission has taken, you know, right down to sending those booth level officers and slips down to the house. I feel that the public also has to be a little more proactive.
Okay.
You can't wait till the last minute and then go there and say my name is not there. The rules are, you know the polling date, you know the elections have been announced. There have been plenty of advertisements and other methods used to tell you that if you just go with your voter ID card, it is not enough. Your name should be there on the polling list. There are electronic means, email, everything the Election Commission has provided that until the last day they are doing it. But if you just sort of, get up of from your drawing room and decide to saunter to the polling booth and say, yeah, my name is not there. I mean, the public also has to take, you can't lay the entire blame on the Election Commission. I don't agree with that.
Okay, so you're saying that the Election Commission is already doing a lot in this area, and now it is up to the public to cover the last mile as far as the electoral rolls is concerned. We're slipping into a short break at this point of time. The discussion will continue on the other side. Stay tuned to Inside. Welcome back. You're watching Insight, and today we are taking a look at the Election Commission's role in the elections held so far. Sanjay, what is your feeling about this? Do you also feel that the Election Commission has done a lot as far as the electoral list is concerned, and now it is up to the people to cover the last mile? It is up to the people to check whether their names are there or not in the electoral list, whether they have got the polling slips or not well in advance before the voting day.
I entirely agree with Mr. Verma that Election Commission done a fantastic job of raising awareness. And if you see the trend of voting over the last few years, you will see that it's going up and up and up, and it's got less to do with those notions that it's because of anti-incumbency or whatever. It's also because of the Election Commission's effort to get voters out. And if somebody wants to put their head in the sand and don't look out at all that the Election Commission is doing, all the campaigns that are coming on TV, all the newspaper inserts that are coming in about how they should get their voter ID if they don't have it, how to ensure that they end up voting. You get so much. I mean, you need to be cut off from the world to be in a situation where you can't vote. I mean, it's, I think, entirely a fault of the people who are not able to stand in the queue and find their names. They should be worried about why it may have happened to them. Okay. So I think Election Commission can't be blamed for this. There may be some little glitches which come in because the data is so huge and something might go wrong. If what happened in Mumbai, which has become a reason why we are discussing this, that a few lakh people actually did not find, maybe a lakh or two did not have their names there, and Election Commission has owned up their mistake. In fact, they have had a repoll also. But save for that, I don't think there has been such a big howler or a mistake in any other part of the country. And you look at the number of voters, it's 80 crores almost who are going to go out and vote, and it's not a small number. As if somebody was saying, this like America voting 7 times or 8 times, Okay. So that is the enormity of the task, and if there are a few glitches here and there, I think they should be excused.
Okay. Mukherjee, your take on that.
Well, normally the elite complaints, so normally do not vote. You see, that is one point. Second point is, I remember at least this time, 4th March, I think it was a Sunday, and we all went and checked our names. You see, so that much of an effort I think every citizen should do, and one can do. And as technology has in computers and all that, I think there is a larger efficiency of the Election Commission and also the awareness. Here it operates at many levels. The political parties try to enroll its supporters, and of course political parties also see that if the opponents cannot vote, that will work to its advantage. So they cancel out each other, but then we have a multi-party system. So every party tries to enhance its sphere of influence. Second important thing is that the organization, the community effort, and that also plays an important role. But then we should not also forget that India is a grossly inefficient system, and the people who really go to enroll the voters, their efficiency is at a very low level. The money paid is also very small, and because of all these factors, I think the kind of problems we hear that we are getting. But mind you that the election that has taken place in India, even in spite of there's a few lakh voters not voting, Mumbai is the least voted city So that also means that the voter apathy in the business capital is much more than the rest of the country.
Yeah. Mr. Verma, during the campaigning stage, we see, Election Commission in the news, and mostly it is because of complaint filed by one candidate against another or one party against another on account of violation of the Model Code of Conduct on various counts. Hate speeches or crossing the expenditure as far as advertising is concerned. In this election, we've also seen complaints by some parties in more than a couple of cities in the country, where one party is said to have purchased the entire advertising space of the entire city, and the election and the expenditure has not been added as has been demanded by the opposition or the opposing party or the rival party in that same city. At the campaigning stage, we've also seen some leaders openly defying the Election Commission and its diktat as far as violation of the MCC is concerned. How are you looking at the expectations from Election Commission over managing the entire campaign stage smoothly and ensuring a fair level or fair playing ground for all the competitors?
I just want to put this in perspective.
Yeah.
Now, you see the MCC, or the Model Code of Conduct,
Yeah.
what it regulates is, firstly, peaceful and orderly conduct of the elections.
Yeah.
Second is, equal opportunity should be provided to everybody. Third, that the right of citizens to a peaceful life should be respected. Decorum should be maintained in the campaign. Fifthly, prevent corrupt practices and electoral offences. Sixth, misuse of government machinery and position. And last is the interaction between the code of conduct and the government of the day. Now, you should analyze the performance of the Election Commission on these issues. Now, just to take this one issue which you have raised, we all know the type of talks which are going on. I mean, it is really low down, I would say, conversation which one party is hitting against the other, and then they are getting personal also and all. Now, there has been a lot of discussion as to what sort of action should be taken against this. Normally, what the Election Commission does is that they only have the powers actually to sort of reprimand them and give them a censure and all, and they give a deadline that by 5 p.m. tomorrow, so and so date, you please apologize or say why you've done this, and by and large this has been working. The politicians also realize that they have to, because the whole thing is on the media, the whole nation is watching, everybody is seeing, so they do give an apology and finish the matter there and then. What is the other alternative? You go to the court, it will keep on going for years, no decision will come. So, I mean, this is one of the methods which they have found that it works. Whatever, I mean, there will be fallacies always in everything. So, this is my take on it.
Yeah. What about the campaign related expenditure about which various competing parties complain against each other?
Here I would like to quote Dr. Qureshi, who just written a book also. I was reading it the other day.
Yeah.
Not in the book, but he has quoted this earlier. He said after the UP elections in 2012, on an average 25 crores was spent by each candidate. On an average. So, we have a total of around 4,000 assembly seats in India. So, that becomes 1 lakh crores. Add 543 Lok Sabha seats, another 12,500 crores. Add all the panchayat, zilla, municipal corporation and various other elections that take place in the country, and you can come to an astronomical figure. Now, where does this money come from? How is it accounted for? Because as Professor Banerjee just mentioned, and it has come up in our analysis also, that when they declare their expenditure, it is always less than 60% or 70% of the election limit.
Yeah.
So, this is the major problem, the misuse of money.
What can the EC do about it?
EC, I mean, they try whatever they can, but this is a larger issue. I mean, it cannot be sorted out during the elections.
As of now, the EC's power to deal with this are limited. That's what you feel. Sanjay, your take on this?
You know, EC has a limitation, as I said earlier. You know, it is a model code of conduct. You know, it is not legally abiding in many ways. It believes on the assertion that you have fair-minded people who cross the line, and when the referee blows the whistle, they will all submit to it.
Yeah.
But as he said, if they don't want to do it, then what do you do? I mean, you look at all the hate speeches that are being spewed all around.
Yeah.
And Election Commission, when it takes a position, then it is found to be sometimes soft and sometimes not so soft. And it is seen to be soft in the case of people who it can afford to be soft, and hard on those people whom it can afford to be tough on them, you know. And that is why that kind of discrepancy comes in, and people start seeing that, you know, there is a partiality which is built into the way Election Commission is conducting itself. But the larger issue, as you were discussing, pertains to the black money and this huge colossal blizzard of cash which is actually sweeping this country, and ensuring that there is no level playing field which is provided to candidates who are actually fighting the election. For many candidates, even 70 lakhs is a bit too much. They can't, I mean, if you and I had to fight election, I don't know how 70 lakhs are going to come in. Election Commission has given that as upper limit. But you look at the constituencies, many of them, and they are spending in crores. I recently traveled to Tamil Nadu, and I was told that a particular candidate had already spent 25 crores. And I asked him, how did he do it? And he said that they had to buy votes. They had to buy about 20,000 votes for 1,000 rupee each. And those kind of horror stories you find all over the country. Election Commission has been seizing cash, seizing gold and all those, but it's just a little tip. Because systems have been created where the money is sent out without a problem. It happens through internal hawala, it happens through the existing networks which always operate through cash. Their Election Commission has been less than adequate, because as my fellow panelists have said, the issues are more fundamental. More it has to do with the way we go about our life, how the economy conducts itself, how black money is generated, and how elections per se or democracy in our country has become some kind of an industry. And there are stakeholders, there are individuals who live off it. And I don't think EC for those 30-40 days when they are enforcing the moral code of conduct can change the nature of how we go through democracy in our country.
Okay. So Mukherjee, these are two issues. Let us take them one by one. First of all, I would like to get your take on the violation of the moral code of conduct. Now, Sanjay said, probably the parallel could be to a football game where one would expect the fair-minded players and they would respond to when the referee blows his whistle. But the referee has a red card as well. Are the players in this game afraid of the referee's red card?
Well, here you see the entire political culture. You see, it is to be understood in the context that there is no common denominator in our nation. You see, India lives 10,000 years simultaneously at the same time. So here one thing that works at one place need not work at that place. So that's why only in the secular idioms or in the civilized versions of modern democracy, normally you cannot win an election. And you look to the fragmented nature of our party system. What you are actually trying to get out of the entire system? Well, 50% of the votes is not necessary at all. You can become a minister even polling 12% of the votes, and people do. So 15, 16, 17, 18%, if is the requirement of your votes, then normally there will be a propensity to capture it in one way or the other. Booth capturing is one, and then the money power, as the Tamil Nadu example was given. So all these things are done in a competitive, unregulated, early capitalistic kind of a system. You look to the another problem here, that have you ever seen a dissenter in any political party? You see, the entire patron-client relationship is built in our political culture.
The inner party democracy.
Absolutely, there is no intra-party democracy, and the Election Commission can hardly do anything about it. Of course, there is a provision for it, and I wish someday it should be implemented much more seriously than it is done now. You tell me a single party where the elections are taken and where people know about it. You tell me a single party where people like you and me can go and join, paying a subscription. Nothing of that really exists. So Indian democracy is not exactly a democracy sense oligarchy. It's a competitive party system with a very limited number of players. It is not that every single Indian can really participate, and those are the important questions I think his association can look into and create a level playing field for it.
Yeah.
I think the most important reason for this, there is a Supreme Court judgment in the mid 70s where it said that political party expenditure should be limited to the number of candidates into 70 lakhs, whatever it may be. But that the parliament did not accept. It was revised.
Okay.
So, if you really look to the analysis of the present situation, if the income of a political party is say 10 rupees, in every election they spend 20 rupees. How is it possible?
Right.
So, there are a lot of anomalies and those I think should be straightened in the coming years.
Okay. Well, on that note, we are slipping into yet another break. The discussion will continue on the other side. Stay tuned to Inside. Welcome back. You're watching Insight, and today we are taking a look at the role of the Election Commission in the elections held so far. Mr. Verma, now let us take a look at the actual conduct of elections, and regarding which one aspect that has come to the fore, that has made the headlines in these elections, which we thought was something that had become a thing of the past. Booth capturing was something that we had thought, with the vigilance of the Election Commission and with the huge deployment of forces all across the country, we thought that it had something that had gone away, it had become a thing of the past. But this time around, we have received reports of booth capturing from various corners of the country. We have received a few reports from Assam, some from Gurgaon, your constituency, Mewat area. We've received some from Uttar Pradesh. We've received some even from Bihar. Is booth capturing on the rise once again, and should Election Commission be playing a more proactive role in this?
Yes, certainly this is I would say a dangerous trend. I mean, because we thought this is all behind our back now, but if it is reviving, as there are some reports which are suggesting, what does it mean? It means the connivance of the security forces there, the election commission people there, or they are looking the other way, or they have been moved out from there, or some such thing must have happened for this sort of a thing to take place.
Yeah.
So maybe there is also a need to, they have tried this VPAT in certain constituencies this time, that paper trail. Maybe that is the thing for the future. We need to ensure, one is the security, because as it is, they are deploying central police forces because they do not trust the state police with the conduct of elections. But if this is an alarming trend, I would say, and we need to take very strict action in this, and it can be only by the beefing up of the security and these like what in our ADR terminology we call certain constituencies red alert. By red alert, when we do our analysis and we find that there are 3 candidates there with criminal background, we call it a red alert. And incidentally, I think over 200 odd red alert agency constituencies are already there.
Okay.
Because even now, out of the 7,700 odd candidates, we've done the analysis of 503 constituencies till the 8th phase already. The percentage is around 17% with people with criminal backgrounds.
Okay.
So on that front also the situation is not really improving very much, which is another cause of worry. So therefore, this booth capturing thing has to be tackled head on and in a very strong and firm manner to make sure that.
Sanjay, why do you think booth capturing is making a comeback?
I don't know. I mean, you raised the example, brought up the case of Mewat and Gurgaon and Assam. I am not very sure whether it actually stopped in these places. It's also possible that you have some kind of a disruptor as a Aam Aadmi Party which is actually blowing the whistle on things going wrong, or there's some other entity which has come in. I'll give you the example of Mewat. It's a society which is absolutely male dominated. And you have all these vote contractors who sit there and decide. They have been doing this all along. This time too, there were cases of all these men going with these voters slip, 14, 15 of them or 20 of them, they're all householders. And they said, we'll vote on behalf of our women because our women don't come out and vote. And this is a practice which has been carrying on for donkey's years, you know. And they went ahead and did it. So it is possible for an outsider, it came as a surprise because you have a candidate who's a psephologist himself and who assumed that he was working on certain assumptions. And he saw that entire election was being hijacked because this is how it happens. And they all voted for a particular political party because that individual came from that area. Because Gurgaon is a larger constituency, but in a particular segment like Mewat, it's about 4.5, 5 lakh votes. This gentleman came from there and they all decided to vote for him. And whichever way they could, I mean, the voter turnout ends up being much higher. So it's not that it has not been happening, it has been happening. This time around, because there is so much of, I think, media exposure, there's so much of scrutiny. In fact, if you go on Facebook, you'll find number of Facebook pages where people are actually coming out and saying, I voted 25 times, I voted 22 times, and it's been happening. And it is happening despite that EVM and despite the presence of the central forces. So it is unusual because people are saying that. It was happening even earlier. It didn't really stop. We only used to know about the horror stories of what used to happen in Western UP, where the Jats would not allow the Dalits to come out and vote, and they would say, please don't come out till the voting is over. We will take care of your vote.
So what more do you think can be done about this, given the fact that there are not just state level government officers who are in charge of the election process in various states, but the forces are central. I mean, the officers are
this is a
state
sociological
government.
question. It is not forces and all that. I think ADR or some other entities need to identify maybe 100, 200 constituencies and actually work with them and figure out what really takes to get people out. How do you get more awareness? What a vote really means to them. For example, I'll tell you, even in places like Gujarat for that matter, people are paid money not to step out and vote. That is also a malpractice. They would say that you have to show me your finger, and if there is no mark, you get your $1,000 or $500. Large number of people, maybe a few lakhs, end up being totally eliminated from the voting process. So on the one hand, you have all these bogus voting coming in, and on the other hand, you have people who are not allowed to vote because that will, in their reckoning, influence the course of the result or the outcome. So, you know, I think Election Commission has to work all year long. I mean, with NGOs, with academicians, with sociologists, and see how do we sort out their problem. If there is a fear or insecurity about stepping out, people will not come out. They will give freedom to all those people who want to benefit out of voting. They will allow them to do it because the repercussions are going to be felt later, not at the day of the voting. Because the vote may be taking place at that particular moment, but the outcomes are felt much later. You know, so because the stakes are very high.
Professor Mukherjee, do you also feel that booth capturing never went away? It is not just it's making a comeback, but Sanjay says it probably never went away.
Well, you see, even in the first election there was booth capture, but what was thought is that with the improvement in technology and mainly computerization and video cameras and CCTVs, they would decline, but it has not happened. So there are a couple of points in that, you see. The first point is that is exhibited much more in the rural areas than in the urban areas. Second point is that why does it happen? I think, you see, India is a classic example where there is a lot of confusion between individual rights and group rights. We have not been able to sort it out really, that what is predominant, the community or the individual. Third, and I think the most important reason for this happening is, as it happened in West Bengal this time, that there is a larger power of posting at the hand of the chief minister and the chief secretaries. And there I think the role of the chief secretaries become very important. But they, because of their own imperfection or I don't know the reason, they play a subservient role. For instance, in West Bengal, when the chief minister openly said that the election commission cannot remove my officers, mind the word, my officers.
It can come and arrest me, I don't care.
Right, you see all kinds of sentences. And second important thing, when she had to remove them, she also issued another letter that you will rejoin the day the election is over. That I think the election commission should have taken much more seriously, and the chief secretary should have really told the chief minister that this is not done. But in India, this kind of demarcation is eroding. You see, the constitutional support base of the election commission and the civil service must be strengthened. And within that parameter,
so this problem of booth capturing will not be solved with the help of central paramilitary forces that are brought in every election?
Well, you see, the point is that the local terrain and the local outfit of both the political goons and also the local policemen are absolutely important role. You know, the central forces do not know the terrain. They do not know anything. So what happens in election is they take support of the local police, and that is very crucial, because the local police can always misguide them.
They deploy them in areas which are less important. You know?
Absolutely. You know, these are very serious problems and they have to be sorted out. The point that is important is that India is an unreformed state, and unless and until there are the elementary reforms, these kinds of shortcomings will always be there.
All right. Well, on that note, it's time for us to slip into yet another break. The discussion will continue on the other side. Stay tuned to Inside. Welcome back. You're watching Insight, and today we're taking a look at the role of Election Commission in all the aspects about the elections held so far. Mr. Verma, there is also this issue of dummy candidates on various seats and on a large number of seats and probably across the country. Even in my constituency, when I voted, I saw as many as three candidates of the same name, and their symbols were also very similar to each other in shape and in their identification. There are complaints that have been filed by various parties. PPP is one. Manpreet Badal has filed a complaint in Punjab regarding one such dummy candidate who's an independent and whose trace is not known. There are reports about him in the newspapers as well. In various other parts also, there are dummy candidates that are continuously placed by parties, and they do definitely distract the voter, in the sense the voter does get confused who is actually the man whom they were thinking about. Is this something on which the Election Commission can do much more?
Yes, this problem, of course, they are seized with this problem because there have been cases earlier also and there has been litigation also, and certain judgments are also there on this issue. But yes, definitely something more needs to be done, and because it confuses the voter, especially when they advertise various things and the same person's name is there, and sometimes pamphlets are issued as was done earlier once. It confuses the voters, and the main idea behind the whole thing is to cut the votes of the other person, which is not really a fair thing to do, and whether it comes under the corrupt practices or electoral, this thing needs to be seen by the Election Commission.
Sanjay, your take on that?
I mean, yes, obviously they're trying to be smart by confusing the voters, especially those people who would go by name and not by the symbol. And it could, I don't know what is the percentage of the votes being taken away by introducing such people. If it is not very substantial, it means we can always safely say the voters are clever and they don't get too tricked by whatever political parties might be doing.
No, there are instances,
but if there is a substantial
there are
amount,
instances when they've taken away significant chunk
so
of
if
the
there
votes.
is substantial, I think Election Commission needs to step in and try to find a solution, primarily to figure out whether there is a malintent. But you cannot stop people from, if there are Sanjay Kapoor, three Sanjay Kapoors who want to fight election, how does the Election Commission come into it? In fact, if I had a name like Narendra Modi, I would have actually filed my nomination from Banaras, and hoped that I get some traction out of it, publicity if nothing else. Or for that matter, Rahul Gandhi. I mean, this happens. So I think there is a limit beyond which Election Commission cannot go, They're not gods. They can be assertive, they can educate, they can do more, they can be more articulate. I think my problem with the Election Commission, the present lot, is they're not speaking more than what they should. They should step out more, be tougher, because we've got certain standards when it comes to election commissioners. We had the very famous T.N. Seshan, who was there, who actually pushed the envelope about how Election Commission should conduct itself. So I think this is a phase where the voters have to be educated. This is a phase where voters have to be made aware of what they should expect from a politician, from their candidate, and Election Commission could do all that by taking advantage of it. I'm not very sure whether people who are bureaucrats, many of these who have never had any kind of spark in the last 30-40 years can fulfill that role. I think at some stage Election Commission has to depart from selecting such individuals who cannot fulfill a role of this nature. So it's a large, I think it's a huge mandate in a democracy that you need to get your people right who are conducting the elections. So bureaucratically they are doing very well, sending the police, doing all that, having a 9-stage election. I think it is a scandal the way the elections have been carrying on for so long. Everybody's expenditure multiplies many times over. Some of my friends who are actually contesting this election on May 12 have been campaigning last so long. I mean, they run out of money. They aren't very big, but they can't let go. So Election Commission has to be mindful of that.
Okay.
Try to compress, try to shorten it.
Compressed.
So this is an unrelated issue, but I'm sure because I saw the time running out, I thought I'll introduce this also.
No, it's not unrelated. It's definitely pertinent. A lot of people have written about it. I felt so. Professor Mukherjee, your take on the dummy candidates part. Can the EC do anything about it?
Well, right now it can do very little, but really it does not matter. You see, the larger symbolism is involved in the process, and the political parties do take care to see that the electorate knows the symbols. I think even an absolutely illiterate person will know the symbols of the major political parties, you know. So these kinds of deviations will always be there. Now the question of, the 2 points.
But what if there are new parties, new candidates in the fray who are trying to do it?
Well, the new parties do a carpet bombing. You know, Aam Aadmi Party did that in Bengal. So that kind of mechanism has been evolved.
In Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party lost in a lot of places where I was told later that it was because of a large chunk of votes that a certain candidate who had emerged with a torch symbol had taken away. And the torch symbol was very close to the jhadu symbol.
That's normally the losers still. You know, the people who win, they don't.
People who told me it's not the Aam Aadmi Party. I went to constituencies, like for example, not just why I'm specifically mentioning new parties, that because Manpreet Badal in Punjab, he has also floated a new party, the Punjab People's Party, the PPP, and it is also trying to create its own space in the polity. Now people are not very familiar with PPP. People might know Badal, but people don't know PPP. A lot of people, the symbol and the name of the party has not been able to enter into the imagination of the voters. So he tends to lose if some candidate is placed. That is,
I understand that. But regarding the staggered election, mind you, it's again Session who started it, and I think in a way it is very good, because the election campaign is restricted to 2 weeks. Now, why should somebody campaign for 6 months or a month or 6 weeks? It should be restricted to that. Ultimately, what is the aim of the Election Commission? To see that the posters disappear, you know, the larger road shows disappear, and the electronic media will be used, and a matured election should become like the Western countries, where there is lot of leverage of the media and then informed citizenship that balance each other and vote. Unfortunately, that has not arrived in India, but I think it is to arrive in India, and that will be the real reply to the imperfections that we face today.
Mr. Verma, what do you feel about the staggered elections, and do you also feel that something needs to be done about it?
No, I think it is required, but yes, this is one of the longest ones, I think, running into 9 phases. So this is stretching it a little much, though of course it is required because of security reasons and the logistics and the administration which is involved. And it helps the Election Commission in monitoring the thing better. And as we are aware, there are a lot of areas which are Maoist infected, and northeast, J&K. So there are special conditions there. So it's and then they also see the how critical those areas are, some of them. So they have to sort of group them together and then have the elections there in one time. So I think it is overall it is a good system.
Okay, Sanjay, one thing
I just want to tell you, Election Commission itself had done exercises in the past about whether it can be a 1-day election or 2-day election, and they came to the conclusion that the majority of the seats are basically safe. They are not those so-called red alert seats where you can actually have election without even too much of security forces. And attempts were made by the Election Commission time and again to do it, but there is always that input that comes from the security forces. To some extent, what happens is the Election Commission is bound by the inputs which are coming in from IB and the Home Ministry about the possibility of violence and all that. So even though EC may like to finish it off in say 3-4 phases or 4 phases, the security forces have their own idea about how the election has to be conducted. And I think it has to be resolved. I mean, the entire country cannot be held ransom for so long with the election process carrying on endlessly. I mean, that's my view. I'm sure my fellow panelists are not really going to buy that, but I think that it needs
analysis in the newspapers also, and there are people on both sides of the argument. But I'm afraid I'll have to wrap up with that. That's all we have time for. Anil Verma, Sanjay Kapoor and Professor Mukherjee, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you in this edition of Insight. Thank you so much for joining us, and do stay tuned to Lok Sabha television for more. Namaskar.